Hello everyone, and welcome to our presentation on audiovisual mnemonics and how they can improve student learning. My name is Ron Robertson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Picmonic, which stands for Picture Mnemonics. Picmonic has been used by over 800,000 students to date in over 120 countries, enabling those in healthcare education to learn difficult concepts more efficiently and effectively to ultimately do better on exams and as healthcare practitioners. But that is just the beginning. So today, we want to share with you how to explore new boundaries in teaching and learning. So Picmonic is a next-generation visual learning platform that powers these visual study lessons proven to increase the retention and recall of information. It does this through engaging videos and cartoons. However, it's evidence-based, and it can supplement your existing curricula, and of course, it's mobile-friendly. So today we're going to be talking about how mnemonics engage students and increase memory retention. We'll discuss a little bit about the science and how it all works. And then in the second half, I want to show you how to actually create mnemonics as a teaching tool for yourself. So a quick memory activity to get started. I'm going to show you a text-based list of information of a topic or concept that you are not familiar with. And then I'm going to show you that same concept as a picture. So quick list, quick memory activity here. Take a look at this word, chromalin. Again, it's okay if you're not familiar with any of these things. I just want to see if you can quickly look at a list of information and memorize it. So chromalin, mast cell stabilizer, asthma prophylaxis, bronchial inflammation, or allergic rhinitis. Now yes, this is a pharmacological agent that you're probably not familiar with, but can you look at this list and commit it to memory? Well, the reality is, it might be difficult to do that. And even if you do, reality is you'll probably start to forget it very quickly. That's because as soon as we learn information, we start to forget it. This is a natural part of the memory process, though. However, there are things that you can do to impact and influence memory. And we're going to talk about some of those today. But before we do, I now want to show you that text-based list of information in a picture. So close your eyes and imagine the deep blue ocean. Now open your eyes and imagine this chrome marlin jumping out into the air. And it's right in front of this ship that is being stabilized by this mast with a sail, a mast sail stabilizer. And then from the right flies in this asthma inhaler carrying these purple axes. And there's a broccoli in flames walking the plank and an alligator with a runny nose below waiting for the broccoli. Now, you might look at this image and say, okay, this is absolutely crazy. What am I looking at? Well, the reality is it's a picture mnemonic. It is that same list of information transformed into picture mnemonic imagery. So you see a mast cell stabilizer, the asthma inhaler with purple axes for prophylaxis. You see the broccoli in flames for bronchial inflammation, and the alligator with a runny nose for allergic rhinitis. All right, now I know you might be asking yourself, is this real life? Well, the reality is it is. So let's talk a little bit about memory and the science of it all. Memory is the faculty of the mind by which information is encoded, stored, and retrieved. Okay? 3 parts of the memory process that we're going to talk about. First, we're going to start with encoding. Encoding is bringing sensory information into the brain through what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Now, I want to really focus on 4 key memory phenomena that you should be familiar with. Number 1 is picture superiority effect. Basically states that we remember pictures better than words. The brain appreciates multisensory stimuli. So images, they're visual, they're colorful, they're bright, they excite the brain. Words on a page do not. They're dry, they're boring. The brain has to decode them in order to encode them. Okay? So we remember pictures better than words. Next, dual coding theory. This is the idea that we bring information into our brains through our eyes and our ears through dissimilar yet distinct channels. And they can have somewhat of a compounding effect, meaning seeing and hearing simultaneously can actually be more impactful than seeing or hearing independent of one another. So basically, watching videos can be very, very powerful. Next is von Restorff effect. This is a funky name for a very simple concept, which basically is that we remember things that are weird and wacky, things that stand out, things that are different, okay? So you see the 4 different Petri dishes, but one of the Petri dishes has a rhino head on virus legs. That's weird. That's because it represents rhinovirus, but we remember things that are weird and wacky. And lastly, the humor effect. We appreciate things that elicit emotion when it comes to memory retention. Okay, so things that elicit emotion, if they're humorous, if they're funny, if they're scary, if they're weird, we remember them better. Okay, so you might look at this image and you see a polar bear. One side's all nice and the other side's all angry. This is representing bipolar disease. But you can use humor through story, imagery, and many other ways to help improve memory retention. So the key takeaways here is, number one, engage your senses. Okay, you don't need to just use text-based information. Use pictures, use video. Audio, visual combined is a very powerful combination. And despite the fact that you might think weird and wacky is bad, it can actually be really impactful, as well as with humor. Next, we're going to talk about storage. We're not going to go into the deep neuroscience of storage, but what I do want to touch on is mnemonics. Now, a mnemonic is just a tool or device to help you remember something better, okay? But there are different types of mnemonics. One of them being acronyms. You're probably familiar with this. This is the idea of taking the first letter of multiple words and stringing them together to form a new word, like Roy-G-Biv for the colors of the rainbow. However, acronyms can be helpful, but it's really easy to forget what a specific letter represents or the entire acronym together. So what are other forms of mnemonics you might not be as familiar with? Well, one of them is a phonetic association, okay, or a phonetic mnemonic. Now, what is this? It's just, what does it sound like? What does it sound similar to? So, for an example, picornavirus sounds kind of like pick-cornavirus, which kind of sounds like pickle corn virus. So we took picornavirus, which is a word you're not familiar with and shouldn't necessarily have any real association, and we've associated it with things that you are familiar with. Picornavirus sounds like pickle corn virus. Okay, pickle and corn. If I remember pickle corn virus, can I remember picornavirus? It's actually working through this process of cued recall to help you remember the core piece of information in hand. Now, phonetics are strong, but we know pictures are even stronger. So now you can actually imagine a pickle popping out of a corn with virus legs for picornavirus. A couple other examples to show you. Atlantic Ocean. Think about teaching geography. Well, instead of just asking them to remember an Atlantic Ocean, imagine an lantern popping out of the middle of the ocean for Atlantic Ocean. Or if I'm teaching you about burglary, I'm going to show you the burglar, the little mischievous guy. Or warfarin, another drug, but warfarin, you could think about the war fairy. And lastly, within the mnemonic systems, it's really impactful to link things together. Instead of trying to remember certain concepts independent of one another, try and link them in time and space. You can do this through interaction, exaggeration, or just creating meaning between connections. And this might sound crazy. All of this might sound crazy, but if you actually look, there's an immense amount of literature supporting the efficacy and use of visual mnemonics in teaching and education, and across a wide range of disciplines. Not to mention, Picmonic actually ran its own International Research Board approved study testing the efficacy of students learning with Picmonic in comparison to text-based information. And the results were pretty outstanding. This was done with a pre-test, a post-test, 1 week out, 1 month out, etc., using both free recall, paired matching, and multiple choice. And what we found was that students using the Picmonic learning system scored over 50% better on exams and increased their memory retention by 330%. That is outstanding. Other highlights from the research showed that students scored higher on every test administered throughout the 3 sessions, with the percentage difference in scores increasing over time, right? We remember pictures for far longer than we do just words on a page. And students were more satisfied, engaged, and reported Picmonic as an efficient use of their time and claimed greater ability to maintain focus. Pretty powerful stuff here. So the Picmonic learning methodology plays off a lot of these neuroscience psychology principles to kind of create a 3-step process. Number 1, you play a picture mnemonic video, which takes important information that you need to know and associates it with these visual mnemonic characters. After you play a video, you go and take a quiz and you practice active recall, helping build more durable, sustainable memories. And then lastly, it's followed up with intelligent spaced repetition. If you're not familiar with spaced repetition, or spaced learning, or the spacing effect. It's this idea that you can take previously learned information and space out your review cycles over increasing intervals in time in order to maximize retention. And a lot of the modern day learning platforms have intelligent spaced repetition algorithms built into them, including Picmonic. So now that you understand a little bit more about why and how visual mnemonics can be impactful in learning, I want to help actually teach you how to create them, because it might seem a little different, and that's reasonable. So what can mnemonics or picture mnemonics be used to teach? Well, they can be used to help students remember independent words, individual words, a definition, a list of information, a process, anatomy or physiology, and much, much more. So let's say you want to teach a concept. First, can you pick a learning objective that you know students struggle with? They either struggle to understand it, to retain it, or to recall it when it comes to an actual application, be it testing or real life. So think of something. Take a moment and think of a key learning objective that's relevant to your area or discipline of study. An example I'm going to use is the difference of hyper versus hypo, or the solar system. Can you actually remember right now the order of the planets? Once we've selected a key learning object or objective that we think is really important for students to learn and retain and that we know they struggle with, we're going to move on to simplifying it to the key facts. What is the most concise form of the learning objective you are trying to teach? How do you break that down into just its necessary components? Well, for our examples, hyper, I really just need to be able to remember above, and hypo, below. For the order of the planets, I'm just going to go ahead and list out the order of the planets: Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. Now, once we've done this, we're going to move on to step 3. And this is where some of the creative elements come in. You want to ideate mnemonic characters, or create these mnemonic associations to help you remember each key fact. This is also called picturable equivalence. Okay? When you think of the word at hand, do you actually associate it with an image? If you do, you want to just use that image. If not, we're going to create a character to help you remember the key fact. Okay? So for the examples of hyper, when I think of hyper, I don't necessarily think of any one thing, but it also sounds like hiker. And when I think hiker, I think about it going up and above. Versus the word hypo, I think about a hippo. Hypo being below, being low, being down, being decreased, things of that nature. Versus the solar system, the order of the planets. For the sun, I just think about the sun. Mercury, the first thing that comes to mind is a mercury thermometer. Venus, love Greek mythology, so I'm thinking about the goddess of love. Earth, the earth, just a picture of the earth. And Mars, I kind of think about the god of war. Red, very aggressive. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and choose mnemonic imagery, or pick a visual image that represents each character. Okay, so to jump into our examples, for hyper, where I think about above, and the hiker, I'm going to just pick a picture of a hiker. Or for hypo, I'm going to pick a picture of a hippo. Same idea applies to the order of the planets. You can see below each one of these. The sun, I've got a picture of the sun. Mercury, a thermometer. Venus, I'm showing the goddess of love. Earth, the earth. And Mars, the god of war. Now, after we've selected our mnemonic characters and imagery to complement those characters, we want to tie it all together. So we want to choose a background image to create a setting for this story. And then we want to take, whether it's one individual thing or multiple things, and tie it all together into one cohesive picture. And then create a storyline that will help actually walk somebody through and understand how this all works. Okay? So we're adding a background, we're adding all the characters in, we're making sure there's logical flow, and then we're creating a storyline or a narrative to help actually explain and teach the concept. So now what you can see is hyper versus hypo. For our example, I see a hiker up above and a hippo down below. Well, what does this actually look like, and how did I create this image? Let me show you real quick. So I'm going to show a video of jumping into the Picmonic authoring suite, and I'm going to click play. And very quickly, I'm going to go and I'm going to type in mountains, because I think about hikers and mountains. So I pick a mountain as a background. I pick a character of a hiker. I want to crop out that little box down below, so I do that. I move him up to the top. I'm then going to go ahead and add a definition, explain the meaning of it. I'm going to add an animation because I want to bring this to life a little bit more. And then I'm going to write a quiz question. So what is the prefix for meaning excess, right, or above? Now, if the correct answer is hyper, I go ahead and add a couple distractors or wrong answers. And then that fact is ready. Now I'm moving on to hypo. I pick the hippo. I do the same sort of process. I put it in the image wherever I want. I go ahead and add definition, explanation, and then this plays, right? So this can actually play with an audio transcript that's narrated. After it does, then you can go in and take a quiz, a multiple choice quiz that'll test you on the efficacy of whether you actually remembered each key fact within this concept. Then you get your statistics, etc. So this general idea of creating a Picmonic might sound insane, but it's actually very doable. Now I want to show you another image for the order of the planets. Again, tying this all together. So the order of the planets, I'm thinking about the background and the setting is kind of the galaxy. So the sun, and the planet closest to the sun is Mercury, which is represented by this mercury thermometer. And because it's so close to the sun, it explodes, shooting balls of mercury into the sky. And Venus, the next planet, grabs one of those balls of mercury and hurls it over her shoulder into Earth, the next planet. And this makes Mars, the god of war, angry, and he goes to lunge forward towards Venus, but he is stopped by Jupiter, who grabs onto his cape. But when you look at Jupiter, he's wearing this purple and red t-shirt that says Sun, standing for Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Also has little Pluto on his shoulder, whether it's a planet or not. So again, you can take something as simple as the order of the planets, tie in mnemonic imagery, and make it more impactful and memorable. So today, we've showed you that picture mnemonics are impactful. We've given you some examples, and what we want you to know is that you can actually make your own picture mnemonics. And Picmonic has built an authoring suite that is free to use. Within this, in the creation platform, you can type in information, use these drag and drop characters, you can auto-narrate your transcript, meaning you can actually just type in the words and it'll narrate them for you. You can make quiz questions. You can do a lot of different things within this. And most importantly, it takes out a lot of the elements of creativity or artistic necessity or being a tech guru. Okay, so we've really tried to simplify this down so that someone like myself, who's neither creative or artistic, can make a Picmonic pretty quickly. And then after you make it, you can share it just by taking the URL and posting it, or you can actually integrate these into your LMS book, assign them to LMS platform, whatever you're using, assign them to students and get gradebook data. And anyone on the receiving end can then play your video and take a quiz if they desire to do so. So we invite you to join our visual creator community. We know that picture mnemonics work to engage students and improve learning outcomes. And we really encourage you to try to create your own picture mnemonics to teach students the concepts that they're struggling with. So sign up for Picmonic for free and start creating today. Thank you all for your time joining us. Bye now.